Now, Iran urges the United Nations to hold the U.S. accountable for the reimposition of oil and financial sanctions against Tehran. In a letter to the UN Secretary General, Iran's ambassador to the world body said the U.S. measures undermine diplomacy and multilateralism. Ghulam Khosrow called on Antonio Guterres to uphold the rule of law. He said the UN should give a collective response to what he called Washington's irresponsible and illegal conduct. Earlier, the Iranian foreign minister said the new U.S. sanctions are backfiring and making Washington more isolated, not the Islamic Republic. Mohammad Javad Zarif has, however, said Tehran will be open to talks with the U.S. if Washington changes its approach to the nuclear deal. To discuss that more, we're joined by Mr. David William Pear, political columnist, joining us live from Florida. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on Press TV's Top 5. Now, what is your take on this situation, particularly the letter that Iran's representative at the UN has written to Antonio Guterres, calling on the UN body to hold the U.S. accountable for not respecting a UN resolution?
Well, thank you very much for having me on again. I appreciate it. I'm not sure how the international community, the United Nations, can hold the U.S. accountable. I guess as Stalin once said about the Pope, how many divisions does he have? Fortunately, the United States has the largest military and is the most powerful financial and military country in the world, so it's hard to hold them accountable. It's very sad to see the U.S. define the United Nations, though, if we're going to make any progress at all in establishing more, peace in the world. We're going to have to rely on international law, and here the U.S. is in defiance of the United Nations Security Council, which resolutions under the United Nations Security Council are mandatory. They're not something that people can pick and choose which ones they want to obey and which ones they don't want to obey. This was already agreed to by the 5 permanent members, U.S., Russia, China, France, England, as well as Germany, and of course Iran as well. So it was already agreed to, and the resolution was passed, and now the U.S. is walking away from it. And quite frankly, it's hard to understand exactly what the motive is of the U.S. What Trump says is that it's the worst deal ever. He ran his campaign on that, but he doesn't really say what's so bad about it, what makes it the worst deal. It seems like it was probably one of the better things that the Obama administration had done towards making a more peaceful world before he left office.
Now, Mr. Pear, well, we've talked to pundits on both sides, and it seems that everyone agrees that the people, the Iranian people, are the ones that will be feeling the effects on the sanctions more than any other sector in the Iranian government. So do you think that this will actually be effective? Will the U.S. achieve what it's looking for by putting the Iranian nation under pressure?
Yeah, this is really a sad thing, and I'm really very saddened to see this, because this is really putting such hardships on the Iranian people. And it's totally unnecessary. The IAEA has certified that Iran has been keeping up its end of the bargain. They've been inspectors there. I'm glad to see that Europe is starting to stand up for themselves and saying that they're going to try and continue trade relations with Iran, and this seems to be, the United States seems to be isolating itself more and more from the rest of the world. Europe in particular has had to suffer through the U.S. imposed sanctions against Russia, which really hurt European farmers and so forth. And now, the sanctions against Iran, it's gonna hurt the Europeans. But of course, as you said, the people that are going to suffer the absolute most are the Iranian people, and I'm sure it's going to cause people a lot of misery and death. Even if I mean, this is what we've seen in other countries where the U.S. has imposed sanctions, is that it can be very, very devastating to those countries, and it can cause tremendous hardships for the civilian population. So it's really a sad thing, I think. And I'm not sure. I guess the overall motive is that the U.S. There's a lot of pressure in the U.S. from the so-called neocons and the Israel lobby and the weapons manufacturers and others for a regime change in Iran. I shouldn't use the word regime. It's not a regime. You have a legitimate government there. The regime maybe is in Washington, but it's really sad to see that these people are having so much effect on our policies towards the rest of the world, and that there's so much militarism and so much hostility and so much discord.
Thank you very much, Mr. David William Pear, political columnist, joining us live from Florida. Your comments are welcome, sir, on Press TV.